Hidden beneath the surface of the Bible's familiar tales lies a story that history almost buried, one of mystery, controversy, and divine encounter. While most people know Enoch as the righteous man who walked with God and was no more, there is another Enoch, the son of Cain, the world's first murderer, whose life and legacy shaped humanity in ways few realize. This Enoch was not just the son of a cursed man, he was the builder of the world's first city, the recipient of terrifying visions, and the author of a book so controversial that early church leaders eventually banned it altogether. Why? Because this book revealed forbidden truths, fallen angels who mated with human women, giant offspring that corrupted the world, and spiritual secrets that shook the heavens. For centuries, the Book of Enoch was considered lost, a mystery erased from the pages of official canon. But it wasn't destroyed. It survived in the unlikeliest of places, hidden in caves and preserved by an ancient Christian community in Africa. And today, its rediscovery raises a powerful question. What secrets did this book contain that made religious authorities so desperate to silence it? Let's begin where this story truly starts, with blood on the ground. Genesis 4:8 records a moment that forever altered human history. The first act of violence, a brother's hand raised against his own flesh and blood. Cain, consumed by jealousy and bitterness, led his brother Abel out into the field. There, in the silence of open land, he struck him down. And Cain talked with Abel his brother, and it came to pass when they were in the field that Cain rose up against Abel his brother and slew him. This was no ordinary crime. It was a rupture in the very fabric of creation. The same ground that had once received Abel's pleasing offering now received his blood, not as a gift, but as a cry. God heard it. "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries out to me from the ground." But God's question wasn't due to ignorance. It was an invitation to repentance, a chance for Cain to confess. Yet Cain's heart remained cold. "Am I my brother's keeper?" he replied, deflecting guilt with defiance. Judgment followed swiftly. The earth, once fertile beneath Cain's hands, would now resist him. He was sentenced to a life of wandering, a restless, rootless existence, cut off from land, people, and the presence of God. And still mercy was not withheld. Though Cain was cursed, he was also protected. Therefore, whoever kills Cain, vengeance shall be taken on him sevenfold. God placed a mark on Cain, not to shame him, but to preserve him, a sign that justice belonged to God alone. Driven out, Cain departed eastward to the land of Nod, wandering. There, a new chapter began, not just for Cain, but for the generations yet to come. After being cast out from the presence of God, Cain began a life of wandering, a cursed man carrying the weight of his brother's blood. But even in exile, something unexpected happened. Cain knew his wife, and she conceived and bore Enoch, and he built a city and called the name of the city after his son, Enoch. From the lineage of a murderer came a surprising new beginning, the world's first city. Out of judgment, Cain forged civilization. Enoch, whose name means dedicated or initiated, was more than just Cain's son. His birth marked a turning point, perhaps even an attempt at redemption. Maybe Cain, haunted by guilt, longed to dedicate his firstborn to something greater, to build where he once destroyed. But the city he built wasn't just a place to live, it was a declaration. God had said, "You will be a wanderer." But Cain said, "No, I will settle. I will make something that lasts." From this bold act of defiance grew a legacy of remarkable human advancement. Cain's descendants did not live in obscurity or passivity. They became the pioneers of early civilization. Jabal established the foundations of pastoral life, becoming the father of those who dwell in tents and tend livestock. Jubal, his brother, gave birth to the gift of music, crafting the first melodies on harps and flutes. And Tubal-Cain, a later descendant, became a master of fire and forge, the first to shape bronze and iron, laying the groundwork for tools, weapons, and industry. Together, they sparked the dawn of culture, craftsmanship, and creativity, all from a lineage born under a curse. These were not just individual talents. They were the seeds of human culture, agriculture, industry, and the arts, the foundations of civilization itself. And at the center of it all stood Enoch, the child of a cursed man, yet a symbol of what humanity could build, even from brokenness. Imagine being the first child to grow up not in a tent or a nomadic camp, but in a city, the only city on earth. While the descendants of Seth lived quietly under open skies, worshipping God in sacred groves and humble places, Enoch, the son of Cain, walked among stone pathways and iron gates. He was surrounded by progress, by music, metalwork, architecture, and innovation. The city pulsed with human ambition. It was a place of builders, dreamers, artisans, and pioneers. It was alive with creation, but silent toward the Creator. As Enoch grew older, he began to notice something others didn't. For all the greatness that surrounded him, something was missing. There was beauty, yes, but no peace. There was brilliance, but no reverence. And so questions began to stir deep within him. Who was the God his great-grandfather Adam once knew face to face? Why had the family been exiled from Eden? What had truly happened in that field where Abel's blood once cried out from the ground? Enoch began to listen, not just to the voices around him, but to the whispers of memory and mystery. He heard echoes of a lost garden, of a creator once near, now forgotten. The city had been built in defiance, but something in Enoch longed for reconciliation. Then something remarkable happened, something no one expected from the lineage of Cain. Enoch began to seek God. In a world obsessed with progress, he pursued presence. In a culture driven by pride, he hungered for truth. In the very heart of a city born from exile, a single soul turned heavenward, and heaven noticed. At this point in the biblical narrative, something extraordinary happens, a shift so quiet yet so powerful that it almost slips past unnoticed. Enoch walked with God, and he was not, for God took him. In a single sentence, Scripture reveals a life unlike any other, a man who did not die, but was taken, a man who lived not just beside others, but with God. Unlike his great-grandfather Cain, who fled from God's presence, Enoch sought it. He didn't build a city to escape judgment. He built a life that pursued communion. And his relationship with God was not distant or symbolic, it was deeply intimate. He didn't merely pray occasionally or perform rituals. He walked with God, day by day, step by step, moment by moment. His life became a journey of divine friendship, a constant awareness of God's nearness. Ancient Jewish tradition and apocryphal writings, especially the Book of Enoch, expand this mystery even further. They describe Enoch's walk as more than spiritual discipline. It was a gateway to heavenly realms. Enoch was granted visions that no one before him had seen. His eyes were open to the invisible world, to the throne of God, to angelic beings, and to the hidden forces shaping human destiny. He saw angels, both faithful and fallen. He saw the heavens, layer upon layer, rising in glory and mystery. And he saw both judgment and mercy, the wrath of God against evil, but also the hope of restoration for those who walk in righteousness. In a world drifting ever further from its Creator, one man reached upward, and heaven answered. According to the ancient text known as the Book of Enoch, once honored by early believers and later suppressed, Enoch was far more than a righteous man. He was a prophet of cosmic scale, chosen to witness the hidden workings of both heaven and earth. In visions and spiritual journeys, Enoch was taken beyond the boundaries of the natural world. He saw the storehouses of wind and snow, the pathways of stars, and the chambers of thunder and lightning. He stood before the throne of the Most High, surrounded by angels in radiant worship, but he also saw the fall of others, divine beings once glorious, now cast down. These beings were known as the Watchers, angels originally sent to guide humanity, but instead of protecting, they betrayed their calling. They looked upon the daughters of men, were filled with lust, and descended to earth, taking wives for themselves. From these unnatural unions came a terrifying hybrid race, the Nephilim, giants of immense strength, corrupted in both flesh and spirit. The sons of God saw that the daughters of men were beautiful, and they took them as wives. But the Book of Enoch goes further, revealing that the fallen angels brought with them forbidden knowledge. They taught sorcery, astrology, weapon-making, enchantments, and vanity, secrets never meant for humankind. This knowledge, once unleashed, darkened the earth. Their offspring, the Nephilim, ravaged the world with violence, bringing chaos and bloodshed wherever they roamed. The earth was corrupt in God's sight and full of violence. And Enoch saw it all. Through divine instruction, he was commanded to record every vision, every warning, and every decree of judgment. He became the messenger between heaven and earth, the one called to speak truth in a time of rising darkness. What made Enoch truly remarkable was not only what he saw, but what he was called to do. Amid his heavenly visions, Enoch found himself standing in a unique position, a mediator between heaven and earth. When the fallen angels, the Watchers, realized the gravity of their rebellion, they turned to Enoch. Though once mighty, they were now desperate, pleading with him to act as their intercessor. They begged him to write a petition, a plea for mercy, and to deliver it before the throne of God. They knew Enoch walked closely with the Almighty. They hoped his righteousness might soften divine judgment. And so Enoch agreed. He wept, fasted, and brought their request before the Lord, but the answer that came was final and terrifying. "You will have no peace. You were made to dwell in heaven, and now you shall have no place on earth." God's judgment was not cruel, but just. The angels had violated the sacred order. They had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed, and now the consequences would shape the future of the world. Yet even amid this declaration of judgment, God revealed to Enoch a greater plan, one that reached beyond wrath and into redemption. A flood would come, not simply to destroy but to cleanse. The violence of the Nephilim, the corruption spread by the Watchers, and the darkness infecting creation would be washed away. But God, in his mercy, would preserve a remnant. One righteous family would survive. Through this coming storm, a new beginning would rise. And Enoch, the man caught between worlds, was entrusted with the knowledge of both judgment and salvation. A prophetic voice in a world on the edge of collapse. Enoch did more than witness visions. He recorded them. With deep obedience, he wrote down everything God revealed, leaving behind a sacred testimony that would echo through generations. For centuries, these writings were treasured by Jewish communities, revered as prophetic and full of divine insight. The Book of Enoch would go on to shape the imaginations of later prophets like Daniel and Ezekiel, who also saw visions of angels, judgment, and heaven's mysteries. Its influence even reaches into the New Testament, where the Epistle of Jude directly references it. "Behold, the Lord comes with 10,000s of his saints to execute judgment." In the early centuries of Christianity, Enoch's writings were widely read. Prominent church fathers, such as Tertullian, Irenaeus, and Clement of Alexandria, quoted and respected the book. It offered a vivid portrait of spiritual warfare and God's justice, a view that resonated deeply with the early believers facing persecution and chaos. But over time, opinions began to shift. Church leaders grew uneasy. The Book of Enoch's bold accounts of angels and demons, its graphic depictions of spiritual rebellion, and its detailed prophecies about divine judgment unsettled the growing institutional church. Some questioned its authorship. Others feared its emphasis on direct divine revelation could undermine church authority and structure. By the 4th century, the Book of Enoch was officially excluded from the biblical canon. Many copies were destroyed. Over time, the book simply vanished from the Western world. But not everywhere. In one corner of the earth, the book survived, preserved with care, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the world to rediscover it. While the Western world erased the Book of Enoch from its memory, one ancient Christian community refused to forget. In the highlands of East Africa, the Ethiopian Orthodox Church continued to revere Enoch's writings as sacred. Preserved in the ancient Ge'ez language, a liturgical tongue still used in Ethiopian worship, the Book of Enoch remained a living part of their scripture and tradition. For over 1,000 years, while Europe dismissed Enoch's words as legend or heresy, Ethiopia kept them safe, copied, studied, and passed down through generations of faithful scribes. Then, in the 18th century, the world would be reintroduced to what it had lost. In 1773, Scottish explorer James Bruce travelled deep into Ethiopia, drawn by tales of forgotten knowledge and ancient Christian customs. To his astonishment, he returned not with fragments, but with complete manuscripts of the Book of Enoch, a fully intact version that had remained untouched by Western censorship. When Bruce presented the text to European scholars, it caused a sensation. For centuries, theologians had only heard whispers of Enoch's writings, quoted in early Christian works or mentioned in Jude. Now, here it was, preserved in full, in a place few had thought to look. Decades later, even more confirmation would come. In the mid-20th century, archaeologists uncovered the Dead Sea Scrolls in the caves of Qumran, ancient Jewish texts sealed in clay jars for over 2,000 years. Among them were multiple fragments of the Book of Enoch, written in Aramaic. The discovery silenced doubts. Enoch's book was not a medieval invention or a strange theological outlier. It was ancient, authentic, and deeply woven into the fabric of early Jewish and Christian thought. Though written thousands of years ago, the Book of Enoch continues to echo with profound relevance today. Far more than an ancient curiosity, it serves as a powerful witness to a forgotten spiritual worldview, one in which the universe is alive with purpose, charged with divine presence, and caught in the tension between good and evil. In Enoch's pages, we encounter a God who is not distant or indifferent, but deeply engaged with his creation. A God who sees injustice, who grieves over corruption, who judges evil, and yet, always, who moves with mercy to redeem. It reminds us that even from a line marked by curse, like the descendants of Cain, a man can rise to walk with God. Enoch's story proclaims a truth that resonates through every generation. Our origin does not determine our destiny. Redemption is possible even in the darkest lineage for those who seek the face of God. But the Book of Enoch also speaks with piercing relevance to the modern world. In an age obsessed with progress, technology, and control, it confronts us with uncomfortable yet necessary questions. Have we, like the Watchers, pursued knowledge without reverence? Have we exchanged genuine connection with God for the convenience of self-reliance? And in our race toward innovation, have we unknowingly sacrificed the deeper intimacy our souls were created for? Enoch's legacy is a call to remember, to lift our eyes beyond what we can build, and once again seek the one who built us. In a world distracted by what is seen, his life points us to the unseen, the eternal, and the invitation that still stands: walk with God, and you will not be lost. The story of Enoch, the other Enoch, is one of redemption, mystery, and revelation. He began life as the son of a man marked by bloodshed, a child born from the legacy of the first murder, and yet he did not remain bound by that shadow. Against all odds, Enoch became a man who walked so closely with God that he was taken, body and soul, into the heavenly realms. His book, once silenced and forgotten, now speaks again. Through ancient scrolls, lost languages, and unexpected preservation, the voice of Enoch rises across time, reminding us of a deeper reality. His writings call us to remember the unseen world behind human history, a world of angels and rebellion, of judgment and mercy, of a God who still calls his people to walk with him. And that same invitation remains open today. Walk with God, and you will not be lost. If this journey into the lost story of Enoch has stirred something in you, a sense of wonder, a hunger for truth, or a longing to draw nearer to God, I want to thank you for watching. Your time and attention are deeply appreciated. If this video blessed you, please consider subscribing to the channel for more deep dives into biblical mysteries, ancient wisdom, and powerful stories from Scripture. Leave a comment below. I'd love to hear. What surprised or inspired you most about Enoch's story? Until next time, keep searching, keep questioning, and above all, keep walking with God. History, as we've been taught, is a collection of events shaped by the legacies of kings, empires, and great minds that push the boundaries of human potential. We've been told about the evolution of humanity, from primitive hunter-gatherers to the creators of vast empires, writers of sacred texts and architects of awe-inspiring monuments. But what if this narrative is incomplete? What if we've overlooked a secret history? A story that connects humanity not just to the terrestrial but to the celestial? The Book of Enoch, a text that lay forgotten for centuries, provides a glimpse into an enigmatic past that mainstream scholars often dismiss as myth. This ancient manuscript, part of the Dead Sea Scrolls, challenges the conventional understanding of human history. It suggests that our ancestors may have had encounters not just with gods or angels, but with celestial beings, perhaps extraterrestrials. As we journey through the mysterious and often overlooked accounts in the Book of Enoch, we will unravel the possibility that these ancient events were not just metaphorical stories, but perhaps even historical records of humanity's interaction with beings from beyond our planet. Our story begins in 1947, when a young Bedouin shepherd named Muhammad Ed-Hibin, while searching for a lost goat near Qumran, stumbled upon one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th century, the Dead Sea Scrolls. In a cave on the northwest shore of the Dead Sea, he found clay jars containing ancient papyrus scrolls wrapped in linen. These scrolls, dating back over 2,000 years, were later recognized as invaluable records of early Jewish thought, including biblical texts, apocryphal works, and sectarian writings from a group believed to be the Essenes. Among these ancient scrolls was a mysterious, non-canonical text, the Book of Enoch. Though largely unknown in Western religious tradition, this text held profound significance for early Jewish and Christian sects. It described events and characters absent from the canonical Bible, offering a new perspective on the pre-flood world and a much deeper narrative involving angels, fallen beings, and apocalyptic visions. Enoch is a fascinating figure mentioned briefly in the book of Genesis. The text tells us that Enoch walked with God, and then was taken from the earth at the age of 365 years, long before the catastrophic flood. Unlike other biblical patriarchs who lived to great ages, Enoch's departure was unique. He was no more because God took him away. This mysterious passage sparked centuries of speculation about his fate. The Book of Enoch, however, greatly expands on this brief biblical mention, describing him as not only a righteous man, but also a scribe who received divine revelations and journeyed into heavenly realms. Enoch's unique relationship with God gave him access to profound mysteries about the cosmos, creation, and the fate of humanity, revelations that seem to go far beyond the scope of any other biblical figure. One of the most intriguing aspects of the Book of Enoch is the detailed account of his interactions with the Watchers, a group of angels who descended to earth and played a pivotal role in humanity's history. The first part of the Book of Enoch, known as the Book of Watchers, tells the story of angels, called the Watchers, who were sent to earth to observe humanity. Instead of merely watching, these angels defied God's commandments by taking human wives and teaching forbidden knowledge to mankind. The offspring of these unions were the Nephilim, giant beings who brought chaos and destruction to the world. The Watchers taught humanity various arts and sciences, metallurgy, medicine, astrology, and weaponry, transforming the human race. While these gifts might have seemed beneficial, they ultimately led to widespread corruption and lawlessness. The Nephilim, described as giants with immense strength, began to dominate and destroy humanity, and the natural balance of the world was shattered. This story in the Book of Enoch echoes the brief mention in Genesis 6:1-4, which speaks of sons of God taking human wives and producing a race of giants. However, the Book of Enoch provides far more detail, presenting a complex and morally ambiguous tale of rebellion, forbidden knowledge, and divine judgment. The narrative of the Watchers raises profound questions. Could these celestial beings have been more than just angels? Some theorists have proposed that the Watchers were, in fact, advanced extraterrestrial beings who came to Earth in the distant past, sharing their knowledge and technology with early humans. The Book of Enoch describes the Watchers descending from the heavens, bringing knowledge far beyond what humans could have achieved at the time. This scenario bears striking similarities to other ancient accounts of gods or divine beings descending from the sky. In Sumerian mythology, for instance, the Anunnaki were a group of deities who came from the heavens to guide humanity's development. The parallels between the Watchers and the Anunnaki are difficult to ignore. Ancient astronaut theorists, such as Zecharia Sitchin and Erich von Däniken, have argued that many ancient texts, including the Book of Enoch, are not allegorical but historical accounts of early contact between humanity and extraterrestrial visitors. Could the Watchers have been such visitors? The detailed descriptions of their actions, the technologies they shared, and their interactions with humanity suggest that they may have been more than spiritual beings. They could have been advanced beings from another world. One of the most fascinating parts of the Book of Enoch is its description of Enoch's celestial journeys. After being chosen by God, Enoch is taken up into the heavens, where he is shown the workings of the cosmos, the movements of the stars and planets, and the fate of both humanity and the fallen angels. The astronomical book, one of the 5 sections of the Book of Enoch, contains detailed descriptions of the celestial bodies and their movements, revealing an advanced understanding of astronomy that would have been impossible for humans of that era. Some scholars have noted that these descriptions align with knowledge that wasn't discovered by modern science until millennia later. Could this suggest that Enoch was given access to knowledge from an advanced civilization, possibly of extraterrestrial origin? As Enoch travels through the heavens, he encounters various celestial beings, including the archangels Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel. These beings guide him and provide him with further knowledge about the divine order, the impending judgment on the Watchers, and the ultimate destiny of humanity. The Book of Enoch describes the heavens not merely as a spiritual realm, but as a place filled with structured order, cosmic bodies, and even multiple dimensions. This portrayal of the universe is remarkably similar to modern theories of space-time and parallel universes, leading some to wonder if Enoch's journeys were not symbolic, but actual explorations of other worlds or dimensions facilitated by advanced technology. In later Jewish mystical traditions, Enoch's story takes an even more remarkable turn. According to the Sefer HaHechalot, Book of Palaces, and other Kabbalistic texts, Enoch is transformed into the archangel Metatron after his ascension into the heavens. In these texts, Enoch undergoes a dramatic metamorphosis, becoming a powerful angelic being who serves as a celestial scribe and an intermediary between God and humanity. Metatron is one of the highest-ranking angels in Jewish mystical thought, sometimes described as the lesser YHWH because of his proximity to God and his role in governing the divine realms. Enoch's transformation into Metatron signifies not only his deep spiritual wisdom, but also the possibility that humans can attain higher levels of existence through divine grace. This transformation raises a profound question. If Enoch, a human, could be transformed into an angelic being, could there be other instances in history where humans ascended to higher realms of existence? Could this be evidence of ancient spiritual practices that enabled individuals to transcend their physical forms and achieve a kind of cosmic immortality? Despite its profound influence on early Jewish and Christian thought, the Book of Enoch was excluded from the canonical Bible. Why? One reason lies in the political and theological dynamics of early Christianity. The process of canonizing the Bible was not only about religious doctrine, but also about consolidating power. Certain texts, such as the Book of Enoch, were seen as too radical or controversial because they introduced concepts of celestial beings and cosmic events that didn't align with the emerging Orthodox beliefs. Moreover, the Book of Enoch presents a vision of divine judgment and cosmic order that is more complex than the simpler narratives found in the canonical Bible. It speaks of celestial hierarchies, the corruption of divine beings, and the possibility of extraterrestrial influences, ideas that would have been difficult to reconcile with the emerging Christian worldview. However, the exclusion of the Book of Enoch from the Bible did not erase its influence. Early Christian writers such as Tertullian and Origen referenced it, and it remained a key text for the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, which still considers it part of the biblical canon. Its impact on Jewish mysticism, Christian apocrypha, and even Islamic traditions suggests that its ideas were too powerful to be completely forgotten. The striking similarities between the Watchers of the Book of Enoch and the Anunnaki of Sumerian mythology cannot be overlooked. Both are described as celestial beings who descended to Earth, interacted with humans, and shared advanced knowledge. Could the Watchers and the Anunnaki be different names for the same group of beings? The ancient Sumerians described the Anunnaki as gods who came from the sky and taught humanity how to build cities, establish laws, and study the stars. These beings were often depicted as giants or beings with divine attributes, much like the Nephilim, the offspring of the Watchers in the Book of Enoch. What's more, both traditions describe the eventual downfall of these celestial beings. The Watchers were punished by God and imprisoned in the underworld, while the Anunnaki, according to some interpretations, either left Earth or faced a similar judgment from their own kind. In both cases, the consequences of their actions led to a great cataclysm, the flood in the Bible and Sumerian myth, which wiped out the corrupted world they had created. One of the most compelling aspects of the Book of Enoch is its description of the forbidden knowledge that the Watchers imparted to humanity. This knowledge included not only metallurgy and weaponry, but also astronomy, medicine, and writing. Could this be evidence of advanced technology shared by an extraterrestrial civilization? Ancient astronaut theorists have long pointed to the precision with which ancient civilizations, such as the Egyptians and the Mayans, aligned their monuments with celestial bodies. How did they gain such advanced astronomical knowledge? The Book of Enoch suggests that the Watchers taught humans how to read the stars and understand the movements of celestial bodies. This knowledge may have been passed down through generations and used to construct monumental structures like the pyramids of Giza and Stonehenge, structures that continue to baffle modern engineers and archaeologists with their precision and complexity. Moreover, the Watchers' teachings on metallurgy and mining may provide insight into why gold became so deeply significant in ancient cultures. According to the Book of Enoch, these fallen angels shared forbidden knowledge with humans, including the secrets of crafting metals and mining valuable resources. This knowledge would have revolutionized early civilizations, giving them access to tools and precious materials that enhanced both their daily lives and spiritual practices. Among these materials, gold stood out, not just for its physical beauty, but for its perceived divine qualities. In many ancient cultures, gold was revered as a symbol of purity, immortality, and divine connection. The ancient Egyptians in particular held gold in the highest esteem, associating it with the sun god Ra, and using it extensively in temples, tombs, and the adornment of their rulers. Pharaohs were often buried in gold-laden tombs, believing that the material would help secure their passage to the afterlife. The Egyptians believed that gold was an indestructible metal, symbolizing the eternal nature of the gods. Could the reverence for gold and its central role in ancient spiritual practices have been influenced by the Watchers' teachings? If these celestial beings imparted their advanced knowledge of metallurgy to humanity, it is possible that their emphasis on gold transcended its material value, imbuing it with spiritual and mystical significance. The Watchers, as otherworldly entities, may have introduced gold as not merely a resource, but as a substance with inherent sacred properties, a bridge between the mortal and divine realms. This influence could explain why ancient cultures worldwide placed such spiritual importance on gold, viewing it as a divine gift from the heavens handed down by celestial beings. The existence of the Nephilim, the offspring of the Watchers and human women, has been a subject of fascination and debate for centuries. Both the Bible and the Book of Enoch describe these beings as giants, creatures of extraordinary size and strength, who roamed the earth and caused great destruction. In Genesis 6:4, the Nephilim are referred to as the mighty men of old, while the Book of Enoch offers a more detailed account, portraying them as a race born from the union of celestial beings and humans, whose wickedness and violence contributed to the corruption of the world before the Great Flood. But were the Nephilim merely mythical figures, or could they have been real, historical beings? Throughout history, there have been numerous reports of archaeological discoveries of giant skeletons, some allegedly measuring up to 12 feet tall. These findings, though often controversial, have sparked widespread interest. However, Many of these discoveries have been dismissed or allegedly suppressed by mainstream science, leading to speculation that evidence of the Nephilim may have been deliberately covered up. If such giants truly existed, it would not only validate the accounts found in ancient texts like the Book of Enoch, but also suggest that these stories were not merely allegorical. The existence of Nephilim would imply that ancient peoples had first-hand encounters with beings of immense power and size, possibly the result of interactions between humans and otherworldly entities. This opens the door to the possibility that ancient myths, rather than being symbolic or metaphorical, may contain kernels of historical truth about a forgotten chapter of human history, one that includes the presence of giants who once walked the earth. As we explore the mysteries of the Book of Enoch, the Watchers, and the Nephilim, one thing becomes clear: the history we've been taught may only be a fraction of the truth. Ancient texts from cultures around the world speak of beings from the heavens, advanced knowledge, and cataclysmic events that reshaped humanity's destiny. Whether these beings were angels, gods, or extraterrestrials, their influence on early human civilization is undeniable. The story of Enoch serves as a powerful reminder that the history of humanity is filled with mysteries we have yet to fully comprehend. Enoch's life, as portrayed in both the Bible and the Book of Enoch, hints at a deeper, more complex narrative about the origins of human knowledge, our relationship with celestial beings, and the unseen forces that may have shaped our early history. His experiences with the Watchers and his ascension into the heavens suggest that ancient peoples were aware of realities beyond our material world, realities that modern science is only beginning to explore. As we continue to uncover and study ancient texts, including those once dismissed as myth or legend, we may find that they hold hidden truths about our past. These accounts, often filled with references to divine beings, angelic messengers, and cosmic events, could be glimpses into a time when humanity's connection to the heavens was more direct and intimate. The Book of Enoch stands as a testament to humanity's ancient quest for understanding the universe and our place within it. Whether viewed as myth, allegory, or historical record, its messages continue to captivate and inspire those willing to explore the hidden truths of our past. As we advance in our own technological and spiritual journeys, perhaps we will find that the story of Enoch holds the key to unlocking the mysteries of our origins, both earthly and cosmic. So stay curious, keep an open mind, and until we meet again. The Bible, often referred to as the Word of God, is a sacred text that has shaped the beliefs, values, and cultures of billions of people throughout history. It contains 66 books, spanning from Genesis to Revelation, and serves as a comprehensive guide on spirituality, morality, and the history of the human race from a divine perspective. Yet throughout the Bible, there are references to other ancient books, mysterious texts that no longer exist, which once held significance for the people of Israel. These books, mentioned in passing in various parts of the Old Testament, have been lost to time, leaving behind a sense of intrigue and curiosity. Who wrote them? What were their contents? Why were they lost? And what can we learn from the fact that the Bible, in its final form, was compiled without these texts? In this video, we will explore several of these lost books: the Book of Jasher, the Book of the Wars of the Lord, the books of Samuel, Nathan and Gad, the Book of Enoch, and several others. By delving into their significance, the context in which they were mentioned, and the theological and historical implications of their loss, we can better understand the Bible's enduring legacy and the selective nature of the texts that have survived. One of the most intriguing lost books is the Book of Jasher, or Sefer ha-Yashar in Hebrew, which is mentioned twice in the Old Testament. The first reference occurs in the Book of Joshua during one of the most dramatic and miraculous events in the Bible. the halting of the sun during the Battle of Beth Horon. In Joshua 10:12-13, the story unfolds. Then Joshua spoke to the Lord on the day when the Lord handed over the Amorites to the sons of Israel, and he said in the sight of Israel, "Sun, stand still at Gibeon, and moon in the valley of Aijalon." So the sun stood still and the moon stopped, until the nation of Israel took vengeance upon their enemies. Is it not written in the Book of Jasher? The text implies that the Book of Jasher contained additional details about this extraordinary event. The second mention of this book appears in 2 Samuel 1:18, where David's lament for Saul and Jonathan is recorded, and he told them to teach the sons of Judah the song of the bow. Behold, it is written in the Book of Jasher. From these references, scholars speculate that the Book of Jasher may have been a collection of poems, songs, and heroic tales. Similar to an ancient epic, it likely celebrated the victories and accomplishments of Israel's leaders, particularly in times of war. The name Jasher means upright or just, which has led some to believe that the book focused on the deeds of righteous individuals who fought on behalf of Israel. However, the true nature of this book remains shrouded in mystery. While it is mentioned in the Bible, it has not survived the passage of time. Interestingly, a book titled The Book of Jasher surfaced in the 18th century, claiming to be the lost biblical text. This version, however, is widely regarded as a forgery, bearing no authentic connection to the ancient work referenced in the Bible. More recently, a fictionalized version of the Book of Jasher has been written by author Benjamin Rosenbaum, but it is entirely speculative and creative in nature. The disappearance of the original Book of Jasher raises many questions. Why was it lost? Did its contents not meet the divine criteria for inclusion in the biblical canon? Or was it simply a casualty of time, lost in the numerous invasions, wars, and displacements that Israel experienced throughout its history? While we may never know the answers, the mention of this book serves as a reminder that the Bible is but a portion of the rich literary and historical tradition that once flourished in ancient Israel. Another enigmatic text referenced in the Bible is the Book of the Wars of the Lord. It is mentioned briefly in Numbers 21:14 during Israel's wilderness journey. Therefore it is said in the Book of the Wars of the Lord, Waheb in Suphah, and the valleys of the Arnon, and the slope of the valleys that extends to the seat of Ar, and leans to the border of Moab. This brief citation offers no clear indication of the book's content, but its title, The Wars of the Lord, suggests it may have been a record of battles fought by or for the Lord. Some scholars speculate that the book may have contained accounts of God's intervention in Israel's military campaigns, events like the crossing of the Red Sea, the defeat of the Amalekites, or the conquest of Canaan. Interestingly, the phrase, "the wars of the Lord," could be interpreted in multiple ways. It might refer to battles where divine intervention played a critical role, or it could denote metaphorical spiritual struggles between good and evil, righteousness and wickedness. Ancient Hebrew texts often used war imagery to describe cosmic conflicts, so the book may have included both physical and spiritual warfare. The Book of the Wars of the Lord also highlights an important point about Hebrew literature. Titles often revealed little about the actual content. For instance, the Book of Exodus is called Shemot in Hebrew, meaning names, because the book begins with a list of the names of the sons of Israel. Thus, the title of the Book of the Wars of the Lord may not fully encapsulate its subject matter, but it certainly suggests that it played a crucial role in preserving Israel's historical and spiritual memory. Like the Book of Jasher, this book has been lost to history, and no known copies exist. However, its inclusion in the biblical narrative implies that it was once a well-known and accessible text for ancient Israelites. It likely served as a geographical or military reference, documenting key battles and victories, and possibly serving as a source of national pride. The reign of King David, one of Israel's most important historical and religious figures, is well documented in the books of Samuel and Kings. However, the Bible also references other sources of information about David's life, specifically the books of Samuel, Nathan the prophet, and Gad the seer. These books are mentioned in 1 Chronicles 29:29. Now the acts of King David, from first to last, are written in the Chronicles of Samuel the seer, and in the Chronicles of Nathan the prophet, and in the Chronicles of Gad the seer. These three men, Samuel, Nathan, and Gad, were prophets who played pivotal roles during David's reign. Samuel, who anointed David as king, was Israel's last judge and a prophet who acted as a bridge between the period of the judges and the monarchy. Nathan was a close advisor to David, delivering the famous rebuke after David's sin with Bathsheba. Gad was another prophet who served David, advising him during some of the kingdom's most critical moments. The reference to these books suggests that they were official records or annals of David's reign, documenting the king's military campaigns, political decisions, and personal struggles. Ancient monarchs often commissioned such works to preserve their legacies, and it was common for prophets to be involved in the recording of history, offering not only a factual account, but also a divine perspective on the events. Unfortunately, like many other texts from ancient Israel, the books of Samuel, Nathan, and Gad have not survived. Their disappearance leaves a significant gap in our understanding of David's reign. What more might we have learned about this pivotal king if these books had been preserved? Would they have provided further insight into David's complex character, his strengths and weaknesses, his faith and failures? The loss of these texts is a poignant reminder of the fragility of historical records and the selective nature of the biblical canon. Of all the lost books mentioned in the Bible, none has captured the imagination of scholars and theologians quite like the Book of Enoch. This text, attributed to Enoch, the great-grandfather of Noah, is mentioned in the New Testament in the book of Jude. It was about these people that Enoch, in the seventh generation from Adam, prophesied, saying, "Behold, the Lord came with many thousands of his holy ones, to execute judgment upon all, and to convict all the ungodly of all their ungodly deeds." This passage is a direct quotation from the Book of Enoch, specifically 1 Enoch, a collection of apocalyptic visions and prophecies. The book describes Enoch's journey through the heavens, his visions of divine judgment, and his interactions with angelic beings. It also contains vivid descriptions of the coming of the Messiah and the final judgment of humanity. While the Book of Enoch is not part of the canonical Bible, it was widely read and respected in early Jewish and Christian communities. Several copies of 1 Enoch were discovered among the Dead Sea Scrolls, suggesting that it was considered an important religious text. However, over time, it fell out of favor in mainstream Judaism and Christianity, and today it is considered apocryphal. The inclusion of the Book of Enoch in Jude raises interesting questions about the nature of divine inspiration. Jude's use of Enoch suggests that certain ideas or prophecies from non-canonical sources were still regarded as truthful or relevant in the early church. However, this does not necessarily mean that the entire Book of Enoch should be considered divinely inspired. Just as Paul quoted the works of pagan poets in Titus 1:12, Jude's reference to Enoch may simply indicate that he found a particular passage relevant to his message. The Book of Enoch offers a fascinating glimpse into ancient Jewish apocalyptic thought. Its elaborate descriptions of heavenly realms, angelic beings, and eschatological events provide a striking contrast to the more restrained visions found in canonical texts like Revelation. While it is not considered part of the Bible, the Book of Enoch remains a valuable resource for understanding the religious and theological context of the Second Temple period. Throughout the books of Kings and Chronicles, there are frequent references to the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah and the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel. These records, which no longer exist, are mentioned as primary sources for the biblical authors who compiled the narratives of the monarchs of the northern and southern kingdoms. For example, 1 Kings 14:19 reads, "Now the rest of the acts of Jeroboam, how he made war and how he reigned, behold, they are written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Israel." Similarly, 1 Kings 14:29 mentions the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah. "Now the rest of the acts of Rehoboam and all that he did, are they not written in the book of the Chronicles of the Kings of Judah?" These lost books likely contain detailed accounts of the political, military, and religious activities of the kings of Israel and Judah. While the Bible provides a summary of their reigns, these records would have offered a more comprehensive view of the monarch's achievements and failures. The fact that the biblical authors frequently refer to these chronicles suggests that they were important sources of historical information. However, like many other ancient texts, they have been lost to time. Their absence raises important questions about how history was recorded and preserved in the ancient world. How much of Israel's and Judah's history has been lost, and what criteria were used to determine which events were included in the Bible and which were left out? The prophet Iddo is another mysterious figure in the Bible, known for his visions and writings. In 2 Chronicles 13:22 we read, "Now the rest of the acts of Abijah, his ways and his sayings, are written in the story of the prophet Iddo." The loss of Iddo's writings deprives us of yet another valuable source of insight into the early years of the divided monarchy. A crucial period in Israel's history marked by political instability, internal conflict, and the divergence of the northern and southern kingdoms. Iddo, a prophet and seer, played a significant role during the reign of King Rehoboam, the son of Solomon, who ruled over Judah after the northern tribes seceded to form the kingdom of Israel under Jeroboam. The early years of the divided monarchy were a time of heightened tension, as Israel and Judah struggled to establish their identities as separate entities while grappling with the spiritual and political consequences of this division. Iddo's writings, mentioned in 2 Chronicles 13:22, referred to as the story of the prophet Iddo, or the Midrash of Iddo, likely contained valuable records of the actions, decisions, and prophetic declarations made during this turbulent time. These writings could have shed light on the spiritual climate in Judah and the role of the prophets in guiding or critiquing the monarchy. They might have provided additional context for the events surrounding King Rehoboam's reign, particularly his failed attempt to reunite the kingdom and his subsequent efforts to stabilize Judah amidst external threats from Egypt and internal dissent. Iddo's perspective, as a seer who was attuned to divine messages, would have offered a spiritual dimension to these political events, highlighting how divine intervention and human decisions intertwined in shaping Judah's destiny. The loss of these writings also highlights the fragile nature of ancient texts. Like many other prophetic books mentioned in the Bible but no longer available to us, Iddo's work has been lost to history. This reminds us that the preservation of biblical texts was often subject to the vicissitudes of time, wars, invasions, exile, and the degradation of manuscripts over centuries. The fact that Iddo's writings are mentioned in Chronicles suggests that they were considered significant enough to be noted, yet like other ancient records, they were not preserved alongside the canonical texts. The final lost book we will explore is the words of Shemaiah the prophet, mentioned in 2 Chronicles 12:15. "Now, The acts of Rehoboam, from first to last, are they not written in the records of Shemaiah the prophet and of Iddo the seer? Shemaiah is best known for his intervention during the early reign of King Rehoboam. When Rehoboam gathered an army to fight against the northern tribes of Israel who had seceded under Jeroboam, Shemaiah delivered a message from God. "This thing is from me. You shall not go up or fight against your brethren. Return every man to his house, for this thing is from me." Shemaiah's prophecy averted a civil war and helped preserve the unity of the Israelite people, at least temporarily. His lost writings, referred to in Chronicles, likely contained further details of his prophetic ministry and the events of Rehoboam's reign. Like the other lost books, the words of Shemaiah have not survived, but their mention in the Bible suggests that they were once considered valuable records of Israel's prophetic tradition. The lost books of the Bible offer tantalizing glimpses into the rich literary and historical tradition of ancient Israel. While these texts have not survived, their mention in the Bible serves as a reminder that the biblical narrative is part of a larger, more complex history. The Bible, as we have it today, was carefully curated and preserved, with certain texts chosen for inclusion while others were left out or lost to time. These lost books challenge us to reflect on the nature of divine inspiration and the process by which the Bible was compiled. They remind us that the Bible is not merely a historical document, but a theological and spiritual text, shaped by the hand of God and the decisions of the human authors who recorded it. Ultimately, the Bible's enduring power lies not in the completeness of its historical record, but in its profound ability to convey timeless truths about God, humanity, and the relationship between the two. While the lost books of the Bible are intriguing and spark curiosity, their mention only enriches our appreciation for the depth of the biblical tradition and the significance of the scriptures that have survived through the centuries. The Bible, as it stands, remains a living, breathing testimony of faith, offering guidance, wisdom, and inspiration to those who seek to understand God's will and their place in His divine plan. Thank you for taking the time to explore this fascinating journey through biblical history with us. If you found value in this discussion and would like to deepen your understanding of Scripture, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel. By joining our community, you'll stay connected with thoughtful reflections, insightful teachings, and a deeper dive into the rich legacy of the Bible. Let's continue this journey together, seeking wisdom, knowledge, and the transformative power of God's Word.